I first noticed the tremors probably in my early adulthood when I first started university. So I'd have been 18 or 19 when I first got it. I didn't get diagnosed for a good 5 years after that. I guess it was in my mid-20s before I got diagnosed. Being a young adult and having tremors was quite embarrassing. I lived with it for a while. I found alcohol helped. And yeah, eventually it got to the stage where I wanted to put a label on what it is I had. I saw my GP who referred me to a neurologist back then, and they diagnosed it as essential tremor, which, and at the time it said, in fact, one of the medications for it is alcohol. So I was doing the right thing before. So my father had tremors. He passed away last year, but he was never diagnosed as having essential tremor. He was quite a heavy drinker, so I wasn't sure if that was caused it or whether it was, which was cause and effect. And unfortunately, my 18-year-old daughter has got it now. So those are the only two members of my family that I know, or immediate family. My nephew, my sister's son, has got it as well. So mainly the hands. In the early days, it was barely noticeable to other people, but I'd notice it and do quite a lot to hide the tremor, not do things and hide my hands and that sort of thing. Over the years, we're talking 40 years, over the years, in the last 10 or 15 years, it started affecting my head as well. My head has a tremor, and my hands got a lot worse. So it's mainly my hands, but also my head. I guess I did the wrong things. I tried to hide the condition, and would then avoid situations where the tremors would be noticeable and embarrassing. So over the years, things like going out to restaurants, having drinks with friends, I started to avoid those situations over time, and that built up an anxiety as well, which accentuates the tremor, makes it work. It's almost like a vicious cycle. Latterly, I guess in the last 5 to 10 years, it got really bad and was almost impossible to hide, which conversely had almost like an opposite effect, that the anxiety lessened because I wasn't trying to hide it anymore. But I would still avoid situations like going out to restaurants and enjoying a glass of wine in company. So I guess I became more reserved. I'm a reserved person anyway, but I became more reserved. I'd look for excuses not to go out to functions and social events. Family was very supportive. They didn't treat me differently, and it was just one of those things I had. But I guess over time it became much more debilitating to the point where it was affecting my work as well. So I work in IT, and things like using a mouse, which was fine around sitting at a desk, I could compensate. But if I was sitting in a room in a meeting and I was controlling the meeting and having to use the mouse, it became quite difficult to do. Initially, when I first saw the neurologist way back in my mid-20s, he prescribed Inderal, which is, the drug is propranolol. It's a beta blocker, so it's used for blood pressure, to control blood pressure. It didn't have any effect on me at all. The tremors were slight, so that the medication really didn't have any effect. In the last 10 or 15 years, as the tremor got much more pronounced, I went back on Inderal, and that took the edge off the tremor. It took about 30% off the tremor. So it was a lot worse when I didn't take my medication than when so even though the tremors were bad, and I was still avoiding social situations. It was a lot better with the medication. I also tried another drug, primidone, which is a anti-seizure medication, but it has the side effect of making you very drowsy. And I took a quarter of a tablet, and it knocked me out for 2 days. I couldn't. I got to work, and I virtually fell asleep at my desk. I had to go home and sleep for the whole day, and I didn't recover for another day. So stopped that straight away. Having got the okay from the neurologist to try alcohol, that was probably my principal means of overcoming. Obviously, very short term and not very practical for things like work, but for social situations, I'd have a couple of drinks before going out, and that was effective for a while. But as it got worse, I'd have to have more and more drinks before the event to cope. So it wasn't a very sustainable approach. So I was probably in my mid-30s, I decided to go and see a psychiatrist about it. By that stage, I guess I didn't know which one was worse, whether the anxiety was having an effect on the tremors, whether the tremor was causing the anxiety. It all became blurred into one, I guess. Was the psychiatry helpful? A little bit, I guess. It obviously didn't make the tremors go away, but I learned some coping techniques to lessen the anxiety. But it wasn't effective to the extent where I was able to cope with social situations or anything like that. So I was still debilitated by the tremor, but I had a little bit more control over the anxiety. I first heard about DBS probably 15 years ago, and it was always something in the back of my mind that I felt that eventually I'd like to try. So I've had a fair bit of time to think it through, not that it was in the forefront of my mind, but my wife actually did a nursing course last year at Hollywood Hospital, and she did a nursing course and did a prac at Hollywood Hospital, and she saw Dr. Rodriguez's website, which said that they do DBS surgery, and so it was, I guess, the trigger for me to get serious about it. So I don't know, the middle of last year, I guess, I went to my GP and asked for a referral. And we went through that process, and I had the operation in January, end of January this year, which was 6 weeks ago. I didn't really have that much anxiety about the operation, maybe partly because I'd heard about it for such a long time and sort of almost made up my mind that it's something I wanted to do. Here's a plug. The team at Hollywood were really positive and explained all the risks, explained that the risks were, some of them quite severe, but slight, so small risk, but major consequence if something went wrong. I understood the risk. It is brain surgery, so things could go wrong, but I don't think I was ever anxious about the surgery. I guess the outcome far outweighed any risks for me. So life-changing, I describe it. So it's still not perfect. So talk a little bit about the surgical process and what happened in hospital. So the operation was 4 or 5 hours. I actually was woken up in the middle of it to interact, which was quite an interesting experience. No pain at all. You're in like a twilight zone, but you're able to respond to requests. And I think holding a drink bottle and then turning on the stimulator, so your hands started doing this and slowly settled down to something approaching no shakes at all. Woke up in ICU after the operation. And immediately after the operation, that first day, my right hand especially was the best it's ever been. And that's a combination of obviously it was due to the operation, but the mere fact that you put the electrodes in the brain causes a reaction, and that reduces the tremor anyway. So it went from perfection to slightly less than perfection, all that had been explained to me, so I knew what to expect. It takes a while for the levels to be adjusted to get optimal tremor control and minimum side effects. So the major side effect that I've had with the operation is a speech problem. So it feels as though my tongue swells in my mouth, so it's quite hard to form words. I've been told that people listening to me don't really notice it, but I notice it. So the act of trying to get words out is a struggle. Now, all of that depends on what level the tremor control is set at. So if this is set for high tremor control, so my hands are beautiful and rock steady, speech becomes quite a problem for me. So it's over the next few weeks, and for the past few weeks, we've been sort of adjusting the levels to find what an optimal setting would be, that the speech is fine, and there's enough tremor control to make a massive difference. So right now I've got it set on the lowest setting that that I can control. So my speech is okay, it's good. The tremors aren't perfect, but even at this low level, I'd say they're about 80% better than they were before. So it's still a massive improvement. Interesting, when I explain to people, it's nice to see the reaction on their face because it's generally one of horror. But it couldn't be easier. The device is really easy to use. I'm sure Dr. Rodriguez's device is a lot more sophisticated than the one I have. So it is simplicity itself, just two buttons basically that you can push things up and down and decide which side of the brain you want to adjust the levels for. So I haven't found that difficult at all, and I don't adjust it often, but sometimes I do. So if I'm going out for a meal or something, I might push levels up so that my hands are a little bit steadier, and I put up a little bit for speech problems. If I'm being interviewed, I drop levels right down so that my speech is okay. At work, I tend to operate at lower levels so that my speech is okay. And the tremors are still fine, they're under control, but they're not as good as if I push it up. So it's finding that balance. And I go and visit Dr. Rodriguez every 6 weeks so that he can do some bigger adjustments, I guess, and then I get to play with it for 6 weeks so I can fine-tune the levels that are optimal for me. The one I've got in here is a non-rechargeable. It has to be changed up anywhere between 3 to 5 years, but that's just day surgery, so it's a matter of opening it up, taking that piece out. All the wiring and the electrodes in the brain stay there. It's just the unit that's changed. The advantage of that is because technology improves over the years, in 4 or 5 years' time, the unit that they replace with could have better technology in it. So there was an option of using a rechargeable unit, which is smaller than this one, but the person who supplied the hardware recommended for me to have this one, and I went along with that. It made sense. Yeah, incredibly happy so far. So I'm doing things that I have avoided for years. For coming here today, I was a bit early, so I stopped into a coffee shop to sit down and had a cup of coffee, which I enjoyed doing. I haven't done that for 5 or 10 years. So yeah, and going back to work after after the operation, there's a 4-week period of recovery where I was off work and couldn't drive for that period. Going back to work, everyone commented about how relaxed and de-stressed I looked and happy I looked. And I feel that way. It is living, I guess, with that condition for as long as I have, so 40 years. It's hard to describe what changes. It's quite life-changing. Yeah. So I guess everyone's different. I had no anxieties about going into the operation. I understood the risks, and for me, the rewards far outweighed the risks. I guess every person needs to make up their own mind. But if they're anything like me, having to live with those tremors where you felt there was difficulty doing simple day-to-day tasks. The one I always use as an example is putting toothpaste on a toothbrush, because you use both hands, and with each one shaking independently, it's actually incredibly difficult to do that one thing. And the difference between before the operation and after the operation is just, you can do simple things like, which I know sound trivial, but it just makes a huge difference to your life. So, yeah, it's good.